So honored to welcome a guest who is the embodiment of today's topic. Luis has had an incredible 32-year career with the City of Rochester, where he retired as the Commissioner of Recreation and Human Services. He left a legacy of revitalized parks, rec centers, and youth programs that have touched countless of lives. But what's truly inspiring is that since retiring in 2014, he hasn't slowed down. He continues to serve our community on boards of crucial organizations like Foodlink and the Seneca Park Zoological Society. He is the perfect person to talk to about building a life of purpose after career. Hola, Luis, and thank you so much for being here today with me. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's just dive right in. Okay, so after such a long and distinguished career shaping our community, what was the biggest surprise for you about your own wellness needs after you officially retired?
I had prepared for the change many years in advance of my retirement. Naturally, financially, that was on the radar screen. I knew because of my position that whenever there's a new mayor, that they have the opportunity to create their own leadership team. So, of course, I hope that I would be included, but I always knew that was a distinct possibility that I may retire at that time. And and I knew that the timing was right in terms of the number of years of service and my age and all that for retirement benefits and the like. But when it actually happened, the surprise for me was the emotional impact, a sense of like a void, a sense of emptiness. When you are in charge and in a leadership position for so many years, and you have 500 employees, 31 buildings, dozens of programs, and you have that sense of leadership and ownership and responsibility, and all of a sudden, and like it's gone. There is a huge void that I did not expect. Like,
Hmm.
literally the next morning, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, but at
Mhm.
the same time, there was this deep sense of emptiness
Hmm.
that I did not anticipate.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting point, right? Oh, so that's actually a great question, a great segue. Um, and that makes me think about intentionality, right? So you've clearly been very intentional about staying involved after your retirement. Can you give me some concrete example of how you intentionally structured your time now to like invest in your well-being?
Well, I went through a bit of transition. So immediately after, so I used to have a personal assistant
Oops.
that did all amazing things for me in terms of calendar and the like. So, now all of a sudden I had to do that for myself. But again, as I mentioned earlier about that sense of void, I had planned financially, but I did not plan in terms of what I was going to be doing with my time, especially in the community. It took a little while for me to kind of sort that out and settle in, and it it also 2 days after I retired, my dad passed away.
Oh,
So I immediately focused on that. That was my immediate focus on the family and kind of healing from that loss. That spring, I retired at the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014. So that spring and summer and fall, I basically became a tennis bum. It was like my escape. It's something that I love to do. I hadn't done in a while. So I just took care. I kind of went into the zone where I took care of my basic responsibilities for my pets, my grandson who was staying with me, who was still in high school, my mother who had, just lost her husband.
mm,
But I spent a lot of time, on the tennis court. And it was actually about a year, almost exactly a year later, that I received a phone call. It really it was a transition for me. And I had served on the board of directors for NeighborWorks Rochester for many, many years. and the executive director, um, she had been hired as the CEO of the Western Region NeighborWorks organization,
Okay.
of which the local NeighborWorks office was a partner. And she reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in, serving as executive director?" And that came out of left field. Uh, and I really, it was so sudden and unexpected. I really didn't, react that well. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
So we went back and forth and decided, okay, at least I can, I know the board, I know the programs, I know the staff.
Hmm.
I can come in and be an interim until you guys go ahead and find somebody that wants to do that. Uh, and I went in there, worked there for 5 months, had a great time there. I felt that I had a really good impact there. But word got out that I was working, and being doing that work instead of playing tennis all the time, uh, it kind of like got the gears
Yeah.
moving a little bit, and I reconnected, with folk in the community and with the city, and like I said, word got out, and next thing you know, I'm getting text messages, phone calls, and opportunities were coming out of the woodwork. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
people just assumed that, yeah, Luis is not working anymore. He's a tennis bum. Leave him alone. He's not interested. And the fact is that they didn't. I think people just didn't realize or didn't think that I hadn't figured things out, and that I would be open to some opportunities.
Beautiful. So it sounds like that spirit of public service is still a core driver for you. So let's talk about that idea of purpose. Because I think that one of the things that you mentioned early on is, kind of how do you repurpose your time for things that you're passionate about? Because now you have an opportunity to be selective, correct? So I know you moved from a major leadership role to now serving on boards. So how did you navigate finding and redefining your sense of purpose outside of that demanding career?
That after I left NeighborWorks, then it was I don't remember 6, 7, 8 months or so that Ibero reached out to me. So I went to Ibero, and they reached out to me because their youth services department was really floundering.
Mm,
And so I went in there, and it was a lot of work, a lot of work. When I was with the city, we had a law department, we had a finance department, I had
yeah.
assistants and, administrators or whatever. And I had to wear all the hats
Mm,
as
mhm.
director of there. But over the course of 3 years, I was able to rebuild that department and
Amazing.
triple the budget, triple the staff,
Wow.
refocused it, our partnerships and programs and services. And in doing so, again, it was like another level of engagement within the community, with the school district, with the city of Rochester. And uh, and and it, again, taking it to another level in terms of the awareness in the community that I was really there, working. And as you said, but I was doing something, it was something that I decided to do.
On your own
It
terms.
wasn't an assignment, like when I was
Mhm.
with the city, I had a great career, but they were like I was assigned to do things. This was something that I chose to, and I've had a wonderful time, and I feel like I've had uh, you know a, a positive impact in each of those organizations. It's
I'm sure.
fulfilling for me as well as for them. I hope.
Well, I'm sure you've had a positive influence. It's what you do. And it's amazing, right? How you're shifting your focus, but it can still be so fulfilling. And so some would say, you're cheating. You haven't really retired, right? So how can you be on this episode talking about retirement when you're still working? But one of the things that I want to emphasize is that you said you got to choose. right? So it wasn't an assignment that was given to you, which is traditional work. You decided, I'm still very passionate about serving my community, and I am going to be selective on how I pour into it now that I'm retired.
Exactly. Yes.
So, how do you manage your time and have some strong boundaries so that you're not filling 60 hours worth of work?
Right. There are times like, for example, like on Thursdays at noontime, I visit my parents at the mausoleum, and that's sacred. It's sacred to me.
Yeah,
So if somebody wanted to meet with me on Thursday at noontime, I was like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available for that.
yeah.
And that's just one example. But I spend a lot of quality time with families, members, and close friends. And I own a home, and I have a lot of projects. I had um, a long list of projects that have been deferred. You know, I make time and I schedule time for all those things. I've made a lot of progress on my house and garden over the past 10 years. And I'm able to just work around it. And I don't feel bad. And folk that I work with are very understanding and accommodating with that. They understand that I'm a busy person and I have other responsibilities, and they're very respectful of that.
Having that strategy of not feeling guilty, but having some real strongholds on your time. And in retirement, you have that flexibility to be able to say, these are the things that are important to me, and I am going to hold that time sacred. And then I'm going to give the rest of my time to the community, right? So I really appreciate you distinguishing, right, how you prioritize when you are how you prioritize your time in your calendar, and really think about how that's part of your criteria when accepting new projects, right? And I know you have an amazing garden in your backyard. I've only seen pictures, but I know it's an amazing garden. Tell us a little bit about how you intentionally enjoy your garden.
I have a 16-year-old Chihuahua, Momo, and my daily routine, 99% of the time, it's a cup of coffee, and I go and sit. If the weather's cooperating, I go and sit in the garden with him. He walks around and does his business, and then he'll sit on my lap, and I just enjoy a cup of coffee and listen to some music. And then this past summer, I did completed a project that's been on the drawing boards for many years. In the back of my garage, there was a tool shed that I really didn't use because I don't park my car in my garage. So the main garage had all that equipment and all that. So this is a small room that's about 6 feet wide and 10 feet long.
Hmm.
And I renovated into what I call the casita. And it has a couple of chairs and a high table, and it's painted. It has a rug in there.
Nice.
It has lamps and art, and it's a peaceful little place. And I'll go in there if it's very hot, and it's my garage is brick, so it's very cool in the summer,
Oh, nice.
and it's a very peaceful little place. And sometimes in the evening, uh, friends will come by, and once they've discovered my casita, I have a nice house, but they want to go in the casita. I'm like, why would you go in this tiny little room? It's just very, very cozy, cute little
Love
place.
that.
Yeah,
So it looks like your creativity has taken center stage, right? After your retirement.
yeah,
That's amazing.
being peaceful and yeah.
Yes. Amazing. So let's touch on a topic that can be stressful for some or for all: financial wellness.
Mhm.
Without getting too personal, how has your relationship with money and budgeting changed since retiring? And what's one tip you have for managing it without constant worry?
So me personally, I've always lived below my means. I've always been a very good aggressive saver. Very early in life, I purchased a home. I was in like my mid 20s when I purchased a home, and I still live in that same home. It's been
Uh,
and I would say, there are a lot of things about my financial situation which is comfortable. It's not worrisome for me. But there are a lot of things that are unique about my personal situation. I worked for 32 years for the city, so I benefit, from a pension, and then recently with the additional Social Security. But I had significant savings that is was the result of just a very modest lifestyle. Uh, and I'm known to be amongst my family and the community of being a very generous person. And that generosity and that comfort, comes from the fact that, I don't live a luxurious lifestyle. I've just been able to save that way and have a nice, cushion, so to speak.
If you could give one single piece of advice to someone who is maybe a year or two away from their retirement,
Mhm.
what would it be?
I would say to prioritize meaningful and sustainable social engagement. When you prioritize social engagement, what happens is that it'll naturally lead to many opportunities for you know your physical health, your mental health, financial opportunities, jobs,
Mhm.
projects, and the like. If you have when you retire, you have many years of experience and expertise. You have you have networks, and you could put that to your advantage. But I think the key is social engagement. So when you remain socially engaged, uh, all of those opportunities come to the forefront, and they're to your benefit. Your physical health, your emotional health, your sense of relevance and stability and purpose. I think they all derive and come from that social engagement.
Thank you so much. Louis, this has been incredibly helpful, and I know our listeners are taking notes. So thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us today. I really appreciate you being transparent and helping others understand how to plan appropriately for their well being after retirement. Thank you so much for being on the live podcast.
It's been a pleasure.